give this bottle a smell.
I think the bottle would probably just smell like glass.
He's right. Let's smell the whiskey next.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Whiskey Laymen. I'm Matt.
And I'm Mac.
And today we will be tasting our first ever whiskey on camera. We're going to start off with Johnnie Walker Red Label today. We've heard that's a very popular whiskey, very commonly found in most liquor stores, at least in our area here in upstate New York. And we will get into it here. All right, so here you can see we have a bottle of Johnnie Walker Red Label. And yes, you'd be correct in noticing that it is close to empty at this point. We still are whiskey noobs. We'll get into why the bottle is mostly empty here in a minute. But first, I want each of us to talk a little bit about our experiences with whiskey prior to starting this YouTube channel, just so everyone has a background of where we're coming from. So, Mac, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experiences with whiskey?
Sure. So my experience with whiskey prior to the beginning of this channel is this bottle. Essentially, I got interested in whiskey tasting maybe 2 months ago, and I brought it up with my friend Matt, and we decided to try some. This brand is fairly cheap, and it's something that my mom has drank in the past, so I decided it'd be a good thing to start with. And having no idea kind of what whiskey should taste like, this is what I started with.
Fair enough, fair enough.
What have your experiences been?
You know, I had maybe had one or two mixed drinks out at bars a few years ago, like a Jack and Coke, maybe. But I honestly couldn't tell you a single thing about whiskey other than if you had asked me if I'd liked it, I'd probably say no. So I'm really going into this, other than obviously this bottle, pretty blind without a lot of previous knowledge. So I think we're probably on a similar playing field here.
First things, I want to take a look at this bottle. So, first impression that I get from this bottle is that it's kind of fancy. That's not coming from a whole lot of knowledge of whiskey bottles or alcohol bottles. But, I mean, it's got like the gold, it's got a textured label on it.
Yeah.
It's got a fancy dude with a top hat.
Top hats are always fancy.
Yeah, and like, I just don't wear a top hat in my day, so it's got like a cool seal on it too. I assume that's, from Scotland seal or something.
It would make sense since it's Scotch.
Yeah, but it's a pretty neat bottle. It's glass. It's not like a cheap plastic, but it is, just a twist top.
It's definitely a step above, your regular Smirnoff plastic vodka bottles, for sure. Which is, maybe
That's definitely where we're coming from.
Exactly. That's what I'm familiar with. Maybe you might get a glass Captain Morgan bottle now and then, but I wouldn't consider Captain Morgan particularly fancy either, especially when you're drinking it with a Captain and Coke. It's got a nice feel to it. I like the squareness of the bottle. Seems, I don't know if that makes it fancier, but it's definitely different. Most liquor bottles tend to be round, at least in my experience. Again, no experience with whiskey. But yeah, I'm interested to know what the story is with the diagonal label as well. What's going on there exactly? Did they decide they didn't like things being straight? Because clearly it's meant to be at a diagonal because it's actually cut into the glass, if you notice up here.
And we're sure that that's not because they were sampling beforehand.
They could be drunk, maybe. But I agree. Overall, Johnnie Walker, it seems like something that's fancy, even though the price point would beg to differ, I would say. So I guess we will have to see if the taste lives up to the look and feel of the bottle. Does it taste fancy? First, we have to smell it.
True.
Right? Smell, we've learned that smell is an important thing you have to do with whiskey before you taste it. Every other whiskey YouTuber out there we've watched for inspiration have to talk about the different smells we get here.
Yes.
Now, as I've explained before and will continue to explain in our videos, we are probably not going to identify the correct smells in this whiskey. So please don't get mad at us if you're watching this. We don't know what we're talking about. Just keep that in mind.
And we are going to smell this.
We are going to smell the shit out of this whiskey.
All right, let's give this bottle a smell.
I think the bottle would probably just smell like glass.
He's right. Let's smell the whiskey next. Alright, now, as we've mentioned, we are experts in the field. So Matt, please tell me all the things that you are able to experience from this scent.
All right. Well, first, I like the color a lot. It's a nice golden color. I don't know if the camera can pick that up here. We'll show you some close-ups, I'm sure. But, it's interesting to see, like wines I've noticed before. It clings to the inside of the glass quite a bit. It has legs, I think that's the term that they use. I'm not a wine expert either. You could say that this
I'm starting
could
to think he's not as much of a noob as I thought he was.
I assure you, I am a layman in most fields. First thing I notice on the smell for me is definitely, well, it smells like liquor. I'm getting a lot of alcohol smell.
Sure.
For sure. Obviously, that's not anything useful to tell you, but that's the first thing I notice.
Honestly, that's I'm getting a very, very heavy alcohol smell as well.
Maybe there's a hint of sweetness to it, though, I would say. I don't really notice any smoky smells, and I know
That's talked about quite a bit in other videos.
Correct, yeah, from what we've seen in other whiskey YouTube channels and just by reading Johnnie Walker marketing materials. We'll talk about more what that says on the bottle and on their website after we give it a taste here, but I know this is supposed to be a somewhat smoky whiskey, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I'm not really noticing any smoky smells that I can pick up, but I think that maybe my untrained nose is unable to get past the alcohol smell at this point. So hopefully as we continue to do these, I'll be able to
Gain
go
some
and
experience.
maybe, yeah, exactly. Maybe we can go back and revisit this in a later video and see if we've learned anything. Maybe like a honey sweetness almost is where the sweetness is coming from, but I might also just be influenced by the color, which kind of looks like honey.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm not sure I'm getting honey from the smell, but the color, I can definitely see that.
It is, yeah. Kind of reminds me the color of like a Werther's.
Yes, absolutely. Those hard caramels,
Yeah.
so good.
They are. I don't think this is going to taste like a Werther's though, which is probably going to be incredibly disappointing to me.
I'll should give it a sip and see if it does.
All right, why don't you start off here with the sip?
Okay, so
Well, there's the smokiness. Okay.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, it doesn't. You can't smell any of the smokiness, but I'm definitely getting a little bit of that when, like, after you breathe out, after you take a drink, you get a little bit of smoke in the back of the throat, kind of thing.
Yep, that's exactly where I got it too.
But coming from kind of a vodka background where you just do shots and there's always burn, this had no burn to me. So I think it's enjoyable.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Compared to other liquors I've had, like vodka, gin, or tequila, a lot less burn on the throat. Almost none, really.
I was kind of getting I feel bad saying it's like a caramel flavor, like a Werther's kind of thing, but there is, I guess that's butterscotch, not caramel. But I'm getting a little bit of one of those flavors. I don't think I have enough experience necessarily to pick them apart.
Sure.
It's kind of faint though. It's a little bit of that and a little bit of smokiness.
I have to say, overall, I didn't dislike this as much as I was expecting to.
A glowing review. From the first sip here, I can see why this would be used in a lot of mixed drinks. Like, it's not like a overpowering flavor. I feel like it could be blended with a whole bunch of different things and not dominate the entire flavor spectrum.
I agree with that. We'll probably have to make a video where we mix Johnnie Walker Red with various things and see how they taste. Overall, if I was coming into this completely blind, having never tasted whiskey at all, I would say it doesn't taste as bad as I would have imagined based on whiskeys I've smelled over my life.
Which we've established is not that much to begin with.
Correct. Yeah. No, definitely not. But like, I've had Jack and Coke before and really noticed the alcohol taste in the Jack and Coke still. which is why I've always preferred like a Captain and Coke instead, because I feel like the rum has a little bit of a sweeter taste to it.
Sure.
You don't notice quite as much of the alcohol burn. So based on that, I would never want to drink Captain straight. I don't know if people do that. Do people drink, like sip on Captain? Is that a thing? Do people sip rums? I don't know. We're going to have to probably try that in this YouTube channel as well.
Do we have to go back and find some pirates? Because I feel like all the movies have pirates swigging on some rum.
That's true. Maybe we could get Johnny Depp to make a guest appearance on one of our episodes.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it seems feasible.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll phone him up. I got a guy.
Yeah, and I'm sure the rum that they were drinking on the set of Pirates was actual rum too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be in character. It's
You
a form
have
of
to
method
be.
acting.
Yeah. It's method acting.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
My point was, I would have expected whiskey to taste worse based on the mixed drinks I've had with whiskey. So I'm pleasantly surprised. We'll see how this pans out in future episodes as we try more expensive whiskeys and also probably more complex whiskeys, I guess, as well. So on JohnnieWalker.com, they start out with the nose. That would be the smell.
Yeah.
Yes, that must be how fancy Scottish people talk about smells, or just how whiskey people in general. So the smell, Mac, says, take in the spark of fresh zest from elegant Speyside and Highland malts in the aromas of our classic Johnnie Walker Red Label. That isn't really particularly descriptive now, is it? Can you tell me, just off the top of your head, what Speyside and Highland malts smell like?
I'm not sure I understand that those must be locations, but I'm not sure I could locate them for you.
I believe they're regions of Scotland, but
Yeah.
I don't exactly know where. I imagine...
Or what they smell like.
Right. Does it smell...
Also, it's the zest of them?
The fresh zest, actually. Fresh zest.
I'm definitely smelling fresh now that I know about that.
Yeah. Is it zesty, though?
It's moderately zesty, totally fresh.
Give us a scale of 1 to 10 zestiness.
3-month-old Irish Spring soap.
Where does that fall on 1 to 10?
Uh-huh.
Okay, there you have it. On to the palate. Well, that would be the taste. Because you taste things with your palate.
That is true.
Yes. Well, I taste things with my palate. I don't know. I don't want to speak for anyone else. An exotic combination of spicy cinnamon and fresh black pepper, which crackles on the center of your tongue. Interesting. So they've talked a lot about spiciness here. Cinnamon and black pepper, two things that are known to be spicy, maybe tingly a little bit. Is that what you're picking up in these flavors?
I'm definitely getting, the tingle, but I just kind of associate that with just an alcohol minor burn. Like, it's not choking me up or anything. It's on the tongue. It's just a little warm and it feels like it's evaporating almost. I guess with the little warmth it gives, it has kind of like the memory of cinnamon, but I'm not getting like an overpowering cinnamon flavor.
So more like someone is yelling the word cinnamon from the other room.
On my tongue.
On your tongue. You're hearing that with your tongue.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, I notice maybe a little bit of the spiciness. I don't think my palate could differentiate between cinnamon, black pepper, or if that is even just the alcohol burn, but I do notice, that kind of tingliness to the tongue a little bit. And maybe that's what it is. And as we go on and refine our palates, so to speak, we may be able to pick up on these more subtle notes. Lastly, we have the finish. So I would assume that is essentially the aftertaste or the flavors you get right after you swallow the whiskey, what's left in your mouth. Yeah, you breathe out the kind of the residual taste, if you will. So here's what JohnnieWalker.com says about the finish of Red Label. The flavor's developing into a long and smoky finish.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely noticed that.
It's not overpowering by any means, but you can definitely detect the smoke for a long period of time after you take a sip.
Right. It kind of reminds me of when my neighbor a few houses away is having a bonfire and I open my windows. I get that subtle aroma of smoke.
Right, yeah. You're not, sitting right next to it, but you can,
Exactly.
it's just, on the breeze every now and then.
Exactly. But that breeze happens to be blowing into my mouth. Or out of my mouth, I guess, because I'm really exhaling the smoke flavor.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
Yeah. So maybe that means the bonfire is inside of me.
That's deep.
We'll have to think about that more.
Yeah.
And then it finishes by saying the signature of all Johnnie Walker blends. So apparently we can expect more smokiness from other Johnnie Walkers.
I can say that I look forward to that. The smokiness, as we mentioned, is kind of like the reminiscence of a bonfire, and it does kind of evoke memories for me at least of childhood, sitting by a bonfire, maybe toasting some marshmallows, not tasting the marshmallows, but being close to the smoke and not getting out of the way when the wind shifts and blows the smoke right into your face.
Interesting. And you associate that with positive experience of getting blasted in the face
Oh
by
yeah.
smoke.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Good times.
So overall, then you would say you liked this whiskey.
Yeah, I mean it's non-offensive. Like as I mentioned, it can be easily blended. I think probably with any number of different things to create various mixed drinks. But just by itself, even I'm okay just sipping this. This is quite pleasant.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I think from what I've seen, the few times I've seen Johnnie Walker Red mentioned on some of the YouTube videos we watched for research purposes to start this channel, generally is not considered a good whiskey to sip, but I guess that's all entirely subjective as well. So you would say you don't agree with that, and you would definitely sip this.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, maybe that means that
I'm a novice.
That could be too. Yeah, I was gonna say maybe everyone's palates are different, and some people really would prefer to sip this, but also maybe
Seems way too logical, don't you think? Like,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe it just means that we don't know anything about whiskey, and we'll find whiskeys we would much rather sip over this one, and we'll look back.
Sure, it could just be that this is the first non-offensive thing that I've had, so I associate that with good. But it could just be that we don't have enough experience tasting a whole bunch of different things.
That's entirely possible. Yeah. So we do actually have a surprise, though, too. We have a bonus piece of content here. We have Johnnie Walker Black Label. This is, I guess, an upgrade from Johnnie Walker Red Label, maybe, so to speak.
Yes.
It's more expensive.
Yes, it is.
Right? Okay. Same bottling, same packaging. It's got the...
Different colors, obviously.
Obviously, it has a
black label,
not a red label. Also has a black cap instead of a red cap. Well, red and gold cap, sorry. The glass does not have a cut where the label goes. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if that's intentional or what. Also, the walking man with the top hat, the fancy man.
The fancy man.
Fancy man, right. Does not have any coloring on him as he did on the Johnnie Walker Red Label bottle, which is interesting to note. Don't really know what any of that means. Doesn't really matter.
Less on the packaging, more on the product?
Maybe that's the intent. Maybe they have a different distributor that makes the bottles.
I believe all scotches must be bottled before shipping out.
Interesting.
Otherwise, they can't be called a scotch. Just not sure. It's perfect. Okay. All right. If we read the label a little bit more closely, it is distilled, blended, and bottled in Scotland.
There you go.
It's written on the label.
Bottled in Scotland.
Right there.
So Johnnie Walker, why are your bottles slightly different?
Okay, this has much more smell.
Much more smell. Interesting. Okay. I notice it's slightly darker in color than the Red Label.
Are we sure it's darker or just not slightly emptier?
I mean, it's both.
Oh, I mean...
Well, it's fuller.
It's fuller, yeah.
The Red Label is emptier.
Okay, but in the glass it does actually look quite a bit darker.
Yes, I would agree with that.
More of an amber versus a light honey.
I think I'm getting
Maple syrup looking color.
slightly more smoky smell.
I'm just,
It's a
It's a similar smell. I guess it's just a little bit stronger. And then, again, I'm not really sure if I can properly convey the fact that it's stronger because that doesn't really mean anything, being completely subjective.
right. I didn't like the smell of either of these. I'm hoping that this one tastes better than it smelled, just like the Red Label did.
Okay, well,
That's a lot smokier tasting.
the aftertaste is the finish.
The finish.
Definitely has much more of the smoky flavoring. This reminds me much more of the bonfires of the holiday season in the summer. That honestly comes through a lot more for me than even the initial flavoring. The aftertaste is much more pronounced than the initial shock.
Yeah, I don't really know if I can recall. I'm going to taste it here again in a second, but what it actually tastes like, just what the finish is so smoky. That's all I get, really. Kind of any other flavors are kind of drowned out for me by
Sure.
the smoke. Maybe that's what they talk about when they talk about a smooth finish. And
The burn being not smooth.
Right. So I would say,
This is a rigid finish.
is that the opposite of smooth?
It's not the opposite of smooth.
I would say the Red Label had a slightly smoother finish for me than the Black Label did.
Interesting.
And I would definitely say, I think overall I liked the Red Label better than the Black Label.
Now, I'm going to have to completely disagree with you.
Okay, that's good.
I believe the Black Label has, I can't really describe the flavor of it, but to me, it tastes better than the Red Label does. And I do enjoy the slightly smokier flavoring that I'm getting out of this compared to the Red Label. The Red Label had a little smoke. This one has a little more smoke, and I'm okay with that. I think maybe one thing here to bring up is that these are both blends. And I know with a lot of scotches, the interesting point is, the single malt versus kind of the blends. So these are from, presumably a bunch of different batches that have been mixed together to create a more uniform flavor profile.
Interesting.
I should always be able to get a Black Label, and it should always taste like every other Black Label, where I'm not sure if that's true with like a single malt. But it's interesting. I think these are very accessible whiskeys because of that fact, is that you're going to get the same product pretty much anywhere you go.
Sure. On the nose.
On the nose.
It's the smell. Take in the luxurious scent of rich and tropical dark fruits and hints of sweet vanilla.
Okay, I don't know what tropical dark fruits are. I'm not a big fruit person to begin with. Is that like dates and plums, maybe? I'm not sure.
Are those tropical?
I do get a little hint of a vanilla smell. A little smoke, a little vanilla, and still kind of the alcohol smell that I have associated with other alcohols.
So I don't notice any of that, but I think maybe this means you have more refined olfactory senses than I do. That smell.
Yes, I'm more refined than Matt.
Mac is closer to being the man on the bottle than I am. Now we arrive at the end of our video. We will give a rating to the whiskey or whiskeys.
Our professional review,
Yes,
honestly.
our professional review, which will definitely inform you on whether the whiskey is good or not, because two guys who know nothing about whiskey giving it a numerical rating will really have an impact on you. I mean, it should at least.
It should. So I'll start with the Red Label.
Okay, start with the Red Label.
What do you rate the Red Label out of 10?
Out of 10, okay. I, obviously having very little to base this on, like this is not compared to other whiskeys.
Right, just 1 out of 10. 10 being the absolute best thing that you have ever experienced in your life.
Best thing I've ever experienced in my life?
No,
or
that's...
best liquor I've ever had?
No,
best
that's
drink I've ever had?
Best thing.
Well, probably like a 1 then, if I had to rate based off the best thing I've ever experienced in my life. If I had to go with best liquor being 10, I would say this is probably like a 5.
A 5?
I would
Really?
give it a 5. On the scale of all liquors I've ever tried, I would give it a 5, because most other liquors I've tried just straight have been vodka, and this did not burn like vodka did, and it also had some interesting flavors. Vodka, I feel like a good vodka tastes like nothing, right?
Right, yeah.
So this had flavors, which I think I enjoyed. So I would say, overall, I would give the Red Label a 5 out of 10. Now, we may go back.
Is that a bad score or a good score?
It's a completely neutral score in my book. It has some things I liked, some things I didn't like.
Okay.
Now, we may go back and revisit this later, having tried other whiskeys, and I may want to readjust that rating. But for now, giving this is kind of going to be my base score of all whiskeys we
That is ground zero for you. That's your neutral.
Correct.
Okay.
This is neither liked nor disliked. So I would say anything lower than a 5 is going to be things that I disliked. So I'm going to start out with a 5 for Red Label. How about you?
Okay, so going off of the way you graded this then, if this is like, didn't dislike or didn't like, I slightly liked this. It had nothing that I didn't dislike about it, but I believe that there's, a big room to grow in terms of flavor and
Sure.
Just overall experience, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I'll give it a 5.5.
5.5. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. All right.
Now, if we were to go to the Black Label, though,
Yes.
I much preferred the Black Label over the Red Label.
Right. Yeah, we talked about how you like the smokiness.
Yeah, I really, it's to me, it's a better drink, and I would, in my current whiskey drinking career, I would give it an 8.
An 8.
Yes,
That is high praise.
Yeah, like, I still think there's room to be better,
Sure.
but this is something that I could sip on pretty much any time and be happy with it.
Wow. Okay. I think I'm gonna go with a 3.5 for the Black Label. I did not like the increased amount of smoke. I don't think I want something smoky when I'm drinking.
I think he's wrong because this is a better drink.
I probably am wrong, and I'm okay with that. But in my uneducated opinion, the Black Label did not taste as good.
So the more pronounced smoke is definitely a divisive factor between our palates.
Yes, it seems so, and I imagine this will probably come up again as we continue through our whiskey journey, since I believe whiskeys are typically aged in wooden barrels.
Yes.
So oak barrels, right? Or
Yes. Thank you for joining us on this journey and our first whiskey drinking review video.
Yes.
Please come back and view the Whiskey Laymen messing up more things about whiskey.
Until next time, I'm Matt and he's Mac. Good night.